Breaking news in the state of New Jersey, folks. The federal court judge has ruled the New Jersey's ban on AR-15s is unconstitutional. This is a major win for New Jersey, but it's not all great news. There's some not so good news. That's what we're going to talk about today. In summary, Judge Peter Sheridan finds that the Colt AR-15, among the list of assault weapons that New Jersey defines under its assault weapon law, is unconstitutional and cannot be banned under the Second Amendment. He also upholds the large capacity magazine, meaning over 10 rounds in New Jersey, upholds that ban and says that that is constitutional. So we're going to get into it in a little more detail. This was a case that was initiated through a lawsuit filed by the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs and a couple of other plaintiffs. So congratulations to you on this win. It is a win. I consider it a huge win in New Jersey, although it's not a perfect win, not exactly what we wanted, but we'll get into that in a minute. Judge Sheridan does a breakdown in his 69-page opinion, and I'm going to put a link to that if you want to download a copy, a PDF copy. I'll also put a link to the order that he issued, removing the Colt AR-15 from the list of New Jersey's assault weapon ban. Now, keep in mind that there's a 30-day stay on this. There are appeals that are going to be filed. We're all standing by to see what the final outcome is, but this is what's been issued so far. This just came out yesterday, folks. He mentions in his opinion the in common use test, which of course means that if you take a firearm in question and you say, well, is it in common use? Do a lot of Americans use this weapon for lawful purposes? So he mentions that test, and he says that the AR-15, and he puts in there, right in there, that there are about 20 million in the United States. So it definitely falls in the category of in common use for lawful purposes. And he also points out that there's evidence that the AR-15 is used for self-defense. It's well made and well designed for self-defense. And that's, of course, evidence. You see that police departments have AR-15s. When I was a New Jersey trooper, we used the Colt AR-15. So it's definitely a weapon of self-defense. And he puts all that in his opinion. So he mentions the Heller case, of course, which is the case where D.C. tried to ban off handguns, and they tried to use statistics and say that handguns are used in a lot of violent crimes. And the U.S. Supreme Court stepped in and said, you can't do that. You can't use statistics that say some bad people use these guns for bad purposes, so therefore they have to be banned. The U.S. Supreme Court said that in Heller. You cannot do that because so many lawful Americans use these devices for lawful purposes. So New Jersey tried to do that in their brief in this case and say, well, AR-15s are used. Some people use them for mass shootings and so on and so forth. So he basically points that out and says, in Heller, that was already addressed, so you can't bring that up here. He also brings out that New Jersey tries to do some historical analogs with laws on knives, trap guns, and gunpowder laws. And he basically says that doesn't apply here either because those were restrictions. Those weren't outright bans, but New Jersey has outright banned many firearms that it deems assault firearms, quote-unquote assault firearms, the Colt AR-15 being one of them. If you look up N.J.S. 2C391W1, right, you'll see that this is definitions under the statute for assault weapons in New Jersey, right? What they define under their assault weapon law. The Colt AR-15 is among that list. Now, what's troubling here to me, not really troubling because it's just meaning it's not finished here yet. The Colt AR-15 is one of many listed, and of course, there's also that paragraph 2, which says that any firearm manufactured under any designation which is substantially identical to any of the firearms listed above is also banned. In this list under the statute, there are a lot of firearms that are banned. So the Colt AR-15 is just one of them. And of course, there are many models associated with the AR-15. So one note on the large capacity magazine, he says that it should stay in place and that it is constitutional, which I don't agree with. I think this is wrong. I think this was an incorrect ruling, and it will be challenged. and it will be appealed, and it'll probably make its way up to the Supreme Court. But we've talked about this before, folks, where to me that magazine limitation, any magazine limitation, is a feel-good law, meaning if you don't really know anything about firearms, you say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. When in fact, if you go back and study X number of mass shootings, you find that magazine capacity really doesn't affect much. It doesn't change the rate of fire. And in some shootings, there have been large capacity magazines where the shooter didn't even top them off, didn't even fill them completely, right? And they still found that the rate of fire was still about the same, no matter what size capacity the magazine was. And we all know that the only thing you're doing with restricting the capacity of the magazine is you're restricting lawful gun owners. So if somebody wants to commit a crime with a gun, they're not going to care what the law is. They're not going to say, oh, I can't use my Glock 19 because that's 15 rounds and the law is only 10 rounds. If they're going to commit a crime, they're not going to care what the magazine capacity is. So that's going to be challenged. It would have been nice if Judge Sheridan ruled that that was unconstitutional, but he didn't. In the complaint, if you read the lawsuit, and it's listed also in the opinion, in the 69-page opinion, the two of the plaintiffs, Mark Cheeseman and Timothy Connolly, state that they intend to desire to exercise their right to keep and bear firearms classified as, quote, assault firearms under the assault firearms law, including but not limited to the AR-15 style rifle. So they're saying including but not limited to. Clearly they meant that entire list in the statute, right? And anything that's substantially identical, that's what they were referring to. That to me is clear. The reason why Judge Sheridan only ruled on the AR-15, and I'm going to explain why, because it's actually in the opinion. In his brief, Judge Sheridan addresses this. He says that the state of New Jersey, in their briefs, right, that they've submitted to the court, they consider the AR-15 to be the typical quote-unquote assault rifle under the assault weapon law that they've written, of course. So they submitted all this documentation on the AR-15 or the Colt AR-15. So he basically says right in there, so because of this, the court is only going to consider the AR-15. This is all the information we have that was submitted by the state of New Jersey. I think it was sort of a cop-out, right? He could have ruled on the whole list in the statute. He could have ruled on substantially identical, but he chose to, and I know they say he's either retired or he's about to retire. So this, I think he's avoiding the larger picture here, and he just said, well, the state of New Jersey submitted all this information on the AR-15 because they consider that the typical assault weapon. So that's what the court is going to look at here. And basically he ruled in favor and said, it's unconstitutional. You can't ban the AR-15, the Colt AR-15. So that is the only gun or rifle that was removed from the list because the judge decided he was only going to look at the information submitted by the state of New Jersey on the Colt AR-15. You know, and he points out that there are a lot of firearms in that list, and they have, different models and different nuances, as he puts it. So he basically didn't want to go there. So one positive, in my opinion, is the Colt AR-15 is taken off that list, right? It's taken off that list. But again, this is not over. This is going to be appealed, and this is going to move up to the Middle Federal Court of Appeals and probably eventually to the U.S. Supreme Court. So I do think that this is a win, right? I think it's a big win for New Jersey. Now, it's not everything that we hope for, but it's a big win, and I think we should take these wins as they come. These cases are slow, and, with Judge Sheridan retiring, I think that definitely had an effect on this case. It's just not finished, right? It's probably eventually going to end up at the U.S. Supreme Court. But in the meantime, if you like this video, please hit that like button and share it. It does help with the algorithm for getting the word out, getting the message out. If you share the video and if you like the video. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing for more videos like this and more updates. Also consider joining as a channel member for perks like early access to videos like this one, member-only chat for live stream, and also priority questions and comment responses. As always, folks, thanks for watching. Take care and stay safe.